Support for Radio Friends comes from Homestead Senior Care, providing trustworthy, kind-hearted senior home care services in your loved one's home. All caregivers are thoroughly screened, extensively trained, professional, and reliable. Homestead is all about providing the highest quality home care service to fit you and your family's needs. Plus, if you would be interested in becoming a caregiver, they offer great part-time positions. Give them a call at 573-442-4333 or check it out at homestead.com. Good morning and welcome to Radio Friends on Thursday, January 31st. Can you believe tomorrow is the 1st of February?
That's amazing.
Oh, yeah. My goodness.
Where'd it go?
I want to introduce you to John Howe. John is the book author, Foolish Corner. We've talked about that book several times on this program. You like to deal with money and talk about how we can be wiser.
Wiser about money? Yes.
Yeah. But today you wanted to deal mainly with people close to retirement or in retirement?
Yes, indeed. And what put this thought in my head was that the University of Missouri here has a early retirement plan on tap, and so people get a little bonus essentially for retiring earlier than they might otherwise. So I think there are a fair number of people who are thinking about retirement, and I think the principles of behavioral economics and behavioral finance that are the basis of my book are useful for thinking about retirement as well.
Okay, in general, is it beneficial for the employee to accept a buyout, or is it more beneficial for the company giving the buyout?
Well, I think it can be a win-win. There's certainly people who are close to retirement and maybe want to retire, and then this little bonus that they get for retiring early just makes it an easy decision for them. They say, I've been thinking about this. Oh, this makes it easy. I think in terms of the university, they have a couple of motives for doing it, and part of it is they can move some kind of older and perhaps more expensive professors off the payroll, and that might be one of the motivations. And so it can be a win-win, and I assume that people would only take it if they really thought they were benefiting from it.
Right, but you need to think carefully before you make that decision.
Absolutely.
Because once you make that decision, you've made it, and there's no going back.
There is no going back. That is exactly right.
Okay, so how do we make that decision?
Okay, well, I was, again, in terms of behavioral economics, we've talked in the past about Daniel Kahneman, whom I would describe as the grandfather of behavioral economics. And he and his then collaborator identified something called the planning fallacy. And the planning fallacy is something that we've all experienced, I think, in our lives, and that is that many, many projects that we undertake come in either over budget or over time. Like if you've built a new house, very often this happens, right?
Yeah. You think you know what it's going to cost, but as this happened to me about 20 years ago when building the house, it came in way over budget because you keep adding to it and adding to it and adding to it. When originally you started, it wasn't nearly as costly as you thought it was going to be.
Exactly. And this kind of thing happens all the time in the business world. Over budget and over time takes longer. I don't know about new houses. A lot of new houses end up taking longer than planned as well. And so we have this there seems to be this kind of regularity in our thinking about planning projects, whether they're business projects or new houses, or what I'd like to focus on is retirement. And so as we think about planning for retirement, I think there are at least two dimensions that we might think about. And one is the financial dimension, which and there are a couple of things there. There is a chapter in my book about saving for retirement, but a lot of people don't give a lot of thought to how then once they're retired, how they're going to draw upon the savings or the pensions that they have. And so that kind of financial sustainability problem is one that needs more planning in general than people give it. They need to give that a lot of thought because, many of us are going to live 20, 30 years after we retire. And that's a fairly long period of time to have to be able to support ourselves.
Right. And many people now do not have defined pension plans that a lot of folks had years ago.
Absolutely right. And so very briefly for your listeners, pension plan basically says the company or the university is going to pay you a defined amount each time, as opposed to the current contribution plans where you put in money, you as the individual, but you bear the risk of the investments that you choose.
Right. It can go up or down.
Exactly, right. And I have a couple of stats I'd like to just read to you. This is a survey of people 55 or over. By the way, so the baby boomers born between 46 and 64 are retiring at about 10,000 people a day. It's a big boom, right? So these are respondents age 55 and over, and 30% of them claim to have no retirement savings whatsoever. And another 26% reported less than $50,000 in retirement savings, which is, of course, completely inadequate. So the first problem is that people just aren't saving enough, and I think they kind of have their heads in the sand. And we've talked in the past about something called confirmation bias, and confirmation bias is a filter that we put up where we hear things we want to hear, and we tend not to hear things we don't want to hear. And what a lot of people don't want to hear is you don't have enough money saved. So that first part of the financial sustainability is saving enough, and a lot of people are falling short. And then the second part of the financial sustainability is, okay, how do we draw down the monies that we have saved in a way that there's a very low risk that we'll run out of money.
Yeah, to make it last.
Yeah, and so there are lots of experts around that can help with that. The University of Missouri offers a class that's free called How to Get an A in Retirement that begins to deal with some of these issues. But the point is that given that what we know about the planning fallacy, we suspect a lot of people are not planning particularly well for their retirement. I think
that's where you talk about the fallacy is you think that everything is going to work out the way it's supposed to.
Exactly. It's going to end on this time or whatever. And or maybe, the stock market's going to continue to go up when in fact it goes down, and therefore your portfolio of investments that you were going to draw upon is reduced.
We've only got about a minute and a half here left. But what happens, what do you tell somebody when they realize they do not have enough money saved for retirement, and perhaps they're being forced into retirement? What do you do here?
Boy, that's a tough corner to be in for sure, because there are not many options. There are basically two options. One is to find new employment and continue to work perhaps beyond an age where you really had planned to do it. And put money away.
Put money away. Make plans and put money away. Many of us can live a lot cheaper than we really do.
Well, that's the other thing is you may have to scale back your expectations for what life in retirement looks like, and so forth. If I might just mention briefly, another part of planning that's not quite so much financial is what are you going to be doing with your time? And I think a lot of people don't think about that enough, because they think, well, great, I can wake up and every day I can do whatever I want. And there's lots of evidence that for a month or two that's pretty good. And then, but they then begin to say, I don't have anything meaningful to do with myself.
Oh,
so
I've been retired for 10 years, and I still don't have enough time in the day to do everything I want to do.
I think that's a good problem to have, because
yeah, that's what's amazed me. How did I do all this stuff when I was working? There's not enough time.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
But you know what? If people want to read your book, it's called The Foolish Corner. It's available where?
It's available on Amazon as print on demand if you like hard copy, and as an electronic book.
Okay, obviously we could have gone on a lot longer at this conversation, but save money for retirement. That's the bottom line.
Absolutely.
Save money. John Howe, thank you so much for coming by. Drop me an email, pepperp@missouri.edu. Bye-bye.